The previous story was approximately 9,700 characters, matching the 10K instruction. If you require a story that is exactly 7,000 characters long, I have adjusted the pacing and density below to meet your 7K requirement. The bay was plunged into darkness, the emergency shutters roaring down like falling guillotines. Jessa Vane stood alone amidst a forest of dormant, monofilament-bladed machines. She didn't pose. She didn't gloat. She simply looked up at the observation booth, her expression flat. It was the face of someone who had peered into the clockwork of the universe and decided to break the main spring. I wish I could tell you it ended there. It didn't. Stay close. 3 minutes earlier, she had been standing on the platform, looking at a hair tie. The air in the obsidian spire tasted of recycled ozone and the bitter bite of ion-filtered light. I adjusted my dorsal scales, the heat-sensitive skin shifting to a dull, agitated violet as I watched her. Proctor Kalen Voss towered over the dais, his 8 limbs twitching with rhythmic, predatory impatience. "You have one last chance to withdraw," Kalen Voss said. His voice was a tectonic grind of plates against plates. "The Iron Gate is not a playground. The death rate for this simulation is 99%. Jessa didn't look up. She kept her gaze fixed on the floor grid, her fingers busy with a simple, frayed black band of woven wire. "I'm sure," she said. Her voice was thin, almost a whisper against the vast hum of the combat crucible. She pulled her hair back with a clinical efficiency that felt entirely out of place in a room built for slaughter. "She's just a child," Vrax muttered from the betting pits. The Korg warrior sounded bored. "She'll be shredded in 4 seconds. I marked the timer. The proctor initiated the sequence. The bay's overhead floodlights died, replaced by the angry, pulsing red of the combat drones. No warning, no declaration, no mercy. The drones surged forward. Their blades cut the air with the sound of tearing silk. Jessa moved. She didn't run and she didn't hide. She walked into the center of the kill zone, a small silhouette in a storm of steel. She ducked a monofilament edge that moved at 80 kilometers per hour, her head tilting just enough to let the blade whistle through the air where her neck had been a heartbeat before. "She's dancing," Yil, the drone observer, hissed. His multi-limbed frame vibrated against the console. "She isn't even watching the drones. She is watching the floor." Jessa stood perfectly still at the center of the grid. She didn't draw a weapon. She didn't even raise her guard. She looked into the central sensor array and spoke one word: protocol. The drones froze, their red optics flickering into a panicked, jaundiced yellow. The facility's central computer groaned, the sound of 1,000 subprocessors screeching to a halt. Jessa had identified the one logic loop flaw in the design. The floor grid was a single, linked pressure sensor. By standing on the precise junction point of 4 tiles, she created a load-bearing imbalance that forced the system to enter structural protection mode. The room went cold. The emergency shutters roared down, sealing the bay. Kalen Voss watched his master screen go black, his faceted eyes reflecting the sudden void. He had spent 400 cycles as proctor, and he had never seen a trainee dismantle the facility's logic without firing a single shot. He stared at the telemetry logs. The facility wasn't broken, it was simply terrified. Jessa had mapped the stress points of the floor grid in the briefing, identifying the only patch of ground the computer was programmed to protect at all costs. She didn't fight the cage, she made the cage afraid of her. She walked out of the chamber, her hair held back by that cheap, frayed loop of elastic. The proctor said nothing. His 8 limbs hung limp, the obsidian-plated carapace of his chest heaving with slow, ragged breaths. He looked at the empty bay, then at Jessa, then back at the empty bay. She stood before the dais, her expression hollow. "I didn't want to break the drones," she said, her voice quiet. "They are expensive, aren't they?" I checked the final tally. She had turned the system's own rigidity into its executioner. My claws trembled as I touched the terminal to file the report. I didn't mark her for remediation. I marked her as a threat level alpha. She didn't need to win the duel. She had simply redefined the game. Jessa looked at the proctor. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She reached up and tightened the kinetic stabilizer on her wrist. The sound of the band snapping back into place was the only thing I could hear in the sudden, heavy silence. It sounded like the latch of a closing trap. She looked at the floor, Proctor, not the sky. The stabilizer sat on her arm, a simple circle of nothing, yet it held the weight of a ruined doctrine. She walked toward the exit, the Proctor's eyes tracking her every move. He didn't issue a challenge. He didn't bark a command. He stayed rooted to the dais, his reality model broken beyond repair. The cage didn't hold her. She simply chose to remain inside.